Over $6,000 for a brake job, 2 belts, and a drive shaft flex disc. Why? Let's find out. Let's get started. So this car is owned by a friend. He dropped it off. It needed a lot of work. Today we're going to find out that there's Mercedes cost and then there's AMG cost. So you see that really sweet AMG Mercedes on Marketplace and you're like, I bet I could buy that and it'll be the price of a Toyota Camry to fix it. It's going to cost even more than a standard Mercedes. We're going to find out today with AMG brakes and AMG parts, it's really, really high. This is a 2018 Mercedes GLC63 AMG S. It has tons of power. It's a very beautiful vehicle, but it comes with some high maintenance costs. Luckily, the friends that own this car are fully aware of this. They know that the cost on this for repairs is going to be really high. They actually took it to a dealer and got some inspections done. And then they called me and said, well, what's a brake job going to be on this thing? I gave them the estimates, some of kind of what I've just told you. And I was thinking they would say, oh my God, that's so high. But it was the opposite. They said, that's great. We're at the dealer right now and they're quoting so much more. When can you get us in? We'd love to bring you the car. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, bring it in. Maybe I should have charged more. No, just kidding. So the price I just told you is for all 4 brakes, 2 serpentine belts, and a drive shaft flex disc. That's it. Most of it's actually parts. Before we dive into and go into itemizing all that, let's take a look around this thing. It's a really sweet vehicle. Here's the front of this GLC. It's beautiful, isn't it, Mrs. Wizard? It is really nice looking. It's so much more, I guess, modern than that ML350 we had. Yep, it's a very beautiful vehicle. And like I mentioned, this is the 63 AMG, as it says on the side, V8 bi-turbo, 4MATIC. It has kind of a pearl white paint. Very, very beautiful color. I really like that on Cadillacs and various other vehicles. The pearl white is very nice. As we come around to the back, you can see it's equally as beautiful. It says AMG GLC 63 S. This thing is very, very fast. It's also very, very beautiful. Let's go ahead and hop under the hood. And under the hood we have a twin turbo or bi-turbo V8. You can see that it has the turbos in the intake portion where we see normally the intake would be in the center of the engine on a V. Actually the exhaust comes out. It's called hot turbo. And the intake is actually on the outsides of the heads where you think the exhaust manifolds would be. It's completely backwards, but it's actually very efficient and very good. And thanks Kevin Bellman for building this AMG in Germany. This little V8 has 470 horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque roughly. Very, very fast. But luckily we don't have anything wrong with the engine. We have no issues under the hood, so we don't have much going on here. Let's go ahead and jump into the interior and Mrs. Wizard can show you how sweet it is. Okay, ladies and gents, 64,737 miles, and I really love this gauge cluster. It is so cool. It's kind of like 2 owl eyes looking out at us. But it also has a little bit of a carbon fiber look behind it as well. I love that design. As we move up, you'll see the dash is leather wrapped with red stitching. They do have a radar detector installed, which is legal in the state of Kansas. But everything is looking really nice. I love the kind of a textured leather here. We had smooth up here, texture down here, and as we move over you'll see we have a very large infotainment system, 3 vent controls right there, and a spot to put their cell phone. More carbon fiber behind, and that is it for our HVAC controls. That's it. And our radio even. We have very little control because most everything is being controlled up there in that touch screen, like so many cars today. As you move down, you'll see that they have their drink tray, kind of this hidden area here. It does say AMG up there, but all of it is covered in carbon fiber, and they have a little bit of a blinged out coaster in there that says Mercedes-Benz. As we look at our console, you'll see here's where many of our controls are that control that infotainment system and other elements of the vehicle as well. Many elements of the car is actually harkening back to my Maserati Levante with the, well, mine's opposite. Mine is red leather with black stitching. Well, this is black leather with red stitching, and it has the little wings that open up for that center armrest. And of course they've got little gadgets and whatnots in there, you know, what everyone needs to keep in the car and hidden.
As we look at the seat, you'll see that it is black with a kind of a red-orange, almost a vermilion color in that center section. That is perforated leather, and it does say AMG in the center with that nice little metal plaque. Has adjustable headrests. As we move to our door panel, I did say panel, someone called me out on a previous video, so I'll make sure that they're happy with this one, assuming they're listening, please be. But you'll see, I love the little speaker design there. It has a nice, interesting, design. Normally we just have grill. This is kind of nice. We do have a nice brushed steel area in that door panel with our controls for our seat. We have more leather as well, and it looks like some work gloves in there, hiding in that, well, map holder, cup holder, a little bit of both. As we move to the back seat, they have more of that kind of that persimmon reddish orange color going on back there, which is perforated again, and we have headrests that are adjustable as well. Headliner, dark charcoal, looking good, nothing going on. As we get to the steering wheel, not only do we have our classic Mercedes symbol in the center, but we also have AMG down here at the bottom. Of course, we have our normal controls for controlling, phones and infotainment system and radio and whatnot, cruise control. But enough of this interior talk. I'm really curious why it costs so much money for just so few of parts.
Oh my God, it's leaking, Mrs. Wizard.
No, it's not.
No, it's actually not. It's just condensation from the exhaust. It's totally normal. So we'll go ahead and move forward up here. We can see we have a jack in the way, but we can see that the pan is nice and dry. There's nothing leaking there. Here's our under engine pan, which is metal, not plastic. You see we've already started on it. We have front brakes already done. The pads were very, very thin. And as we see in the back, which haven't been done yet, they are even thinner than that. Our CV boots look fine. No boots torn here on ball joints or tie rod ends or anything. Everything looks good there. CV boots over here look good. Ball joints, everything. Tie rod end looks good. Again, it has new brakes up front already done. And sway bar links and bushings, everything looks fine. Belts have already been done also. They're kind of hard to see. It was actually quite a difficult job. Danielson did all the work on this one, and he said that it's one of the hardest serpentine belts he's done in a while. It wasn't fun, he said. But it's not about fun, it's about getting the surface done and making the customer happy. Here we can see our big dual exhaust coming down. And it looks like it goes into one, but it actually doesn't. It's just kind of pinched together there. And it continues back. Here's our drive shaft. Everything looks good. And that takes us back to the flex disc, which is brand new. It's been installed there. The old one had cracks running all through the webbing here. On this vehicle, it just has a flex disc in the back. Some vehicles will have them here and also at the transfer case and all up front and everything. But at the transfer case on this one, it actually has kind of a CV shaft type of a joint, so it's not a rubber disc. Just right here is the rubber disc. At our rear differential, we have some cooling fins here to remove the heat out of that as you're putting out the almost 500 horsepower into this differential. There's our CV boots, everything looks good. Our air suspension is nice. Nothing leaking back here, but let's take a look at these rear brake pads. You can see the pads are pretty thin. They've pressed in pretty far below the bracket there. They're actually like 1 or 2 millimeters. They're very, very thin. So it's kind of hard to show on camera. It's kind of tucked in there pretty tight, but the brake pads on the back are very thin. So that's included in the price as well. This is a complete estimate for the whole job. We've already started on the fronts and got the belts done. And here's our rear exhaust, all stock. It goes into one big muffler out the back. So it appears it has 4 exhaust tips, but it actually only has 2. There's one right here and one over there, and it kind of just blows into this metal piece that looks like 4 tips, but it looks really cool. So not really a lot going on underneath. There's no serious leaks. There's no suspension damage or anything that's failed. It just needed the flex disc, the brakes, and the belts. That's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and get this thing back on the ground. So why for those items is it over $6,000 is the estimate to do all 4 brakes, the belts, and the flex disc. The reason why is the parts are so high. You don't go to AutoZone or O'Reilly's or CarQuest and get brake rotors and pads for one of these. they probably won't even have them. It's that high of a level of a car. Just to give you some idea, now we're putting OEM Mercedes-Benz dealer parts on this car. We're not putting aftermarket stuff that you found on Amazon. We're not doing that. The front rotors are $900 each. Not for the set. They're each. The front brake pads, again, OEM Mercedes-Benz. A set of pads, just the pads, $400. The rear rotors, $700 each per rotor. Rear pads, $300 for a set of pads. Then you got the wear sensors, 20, 30 bucks. They're not that much for those. So the prices I just gave you, that doesn't include turning any bolts or doing any work or labor. That's just the parts. When you add in the labor for doing all 4 brakes, it's at $5,000. That's AMG prices, guys. The serpentine belts, the belts are not so expensive, but like Danielson mentioned, it was very difficult to get to. It took him a couple, 3 hours to get it done. 375 bucks for 2 belts. They're in there so tight. They got hoses and all kinds of things in the way that have to come apart to even get the belts off. The rear flex disc, which it looks pretty easy to get to, but Danielson had quite a lot of things to take apart. He had to loosen up some things, loosen some clamps, loosen the exhaust. He had to move the drive shaft out of the way once he got it unbolted. There was a lot involved than it looks like. It's much more complicated. He actually kind of was like, man, I just never thought so many things would have to come apart just to get this little disc off. But you have to move this and move that and get it all out of the way. That little disc was almost $1,000, 950 bucks, parts and labor. And there we are at $6,500. So as expensive as that is, thank God it's not Hoovie's Hellcat bill. Oh my goodness, I have no idea what that's going to be. Multiple thousands of dollars, over 10 for sure. But I just wanted to do this video for you guys. You're scanning Marketplace, you're looking at AMG Mercedes. You know, oh, that'd be so sweet, I could get one of those. They only want 15 grand for that AMG. Just because the value of the car has dropped to where you can afford it, it doesn't mean the parts prices or the repair costs have dropped to a level that you can afford it. Like I just mentioned at the beginning of this video, these customers are very aware of the maintenance cost in this car and have no problem with it. But if that is a problem for you, 5 grand for brakes, stop looking for AMG Mercedes. But on the flip side of it, they are extremely awesome to drive. They handle so well, they got lots of power, but you're probably going to pay for it. So if you're curious what kind of tools that we use to work on this Mercedes, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because we have so many more cool videos to come. Thanks for watching.